$2,500 off on 10 windows or more. Or if you need window treatments, it's Advanced Window Products. 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100 or go to advancedwindowsusa.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Scanners just now calling out a new accident in South Salt Lake, southbound I-15 near 3300 South. I don't see it yet. They're also reporting that it is out of traffic on the right shoulder. And an accident reported Redwood Road near 4100 South. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Smoky skies with a high near 100. The smoke will start to clear out, and we'll see that chance of rain by Saturday and Sunday. Right now, sunny, 93 degrees. I'm Becky Bruce from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
On a truly historic day, the largest prisoner swap since the end of the Cold War took place between 7 countries, notably between the United States and Russia. This happened through incredible effort by the U.S. Diplomatic Corps and many others. American citizens held in Russia have been released, including Evan Gershkovich and Paul Whelan, who have been the most notable of the American prisoners being held there, and they are on their way back to their families. Those are the headlines of the day today. We want to get underneath what happened as this took place in an interesting place. Ankara, Turkey, was the location for over 24 prisoners to be swapped and traded today. And someone who was in the room where it happened, Ambassador from the United States to Turkey, Jeff Flake, will give us the inside scoop on Inside Sources. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, just moments ago, I spoke with a good friend of the show here on Inside Sources, the United States Ambassador to Turkey, Jeff Flake. He was instrumental during these negotiations. There were a lot of things happening behind the scenes, and he was witness to history happening. As I mentioned, 7 countries, the largest prisoner exchange since the end of the Cold War. And I spoke with him by phone. He was in Ankara, Turkey, and again, witness to these extraordinary events as they took place. I asked the ambassador what he saw leading up to it and what happened in the room. Take a listen.
Well, let's just say this was an extremely complicated process with so many people involved and so many countries, a million moving parts, and trying to keep it completely quiet to the end. I tell you, that's a tough thing, and my hat's off to everyone who worked on it. It was just really a Herculean effort.
Yeah, you talked about the number of countries, 7 different countries involved in this whole process. And I think you hit 2 really important things. One, keeping all those moving parts moving, any one of which could topple the whole thing. And then keeping it quiet to the end. That has to be part of what makes this so extraordinary.
Yeah, and as far as that secrecy part, I can tell you it was extremely closely held. And just very few people at each post, knew what was going on. That's the way it has to be. But let me tell you, the White House worked this, and our intelligence community obviously worked this hard. And when with all going on domestically at home, with all the politics, just for example, one thing when President Biden that afternoon on a Sunday, what was about 10 days ago, on the 21st, I think, when he announced that he wasn't going to run again, that same afternoon, he was having to be on the phone quite a bit, specifically on this issue. So there's been a lot going on a lot of fronts, and just so glad to have it happen. And just about 30 minutes ago, wheels up finally from Ankara.
Yeah.
So the plane's now in the air, and we feel good.
Yeah, that is great. And describe for us what you can about that part of it, and give us a little sense, too. I don't think many people realize how involved Turkey is in so many different things internationally. And, of course, you've been there at that post as ambassador, wrapping up here in the next month or so. But give us a sense of how that played out. Obviously, Evan Gershkovich, the journalist, and Paul Whelan, a Marine, really kind of the key figures in a lot of this from the U.S. side, amongst others. But kind of give us a sense of how that played out and what you saw play out today.
Well, from the Turkey angle, this country is a NATO ally. They side with the West. They've been very helpful with regard to Ukraine and supplying the drones and invoking the Montreux Convention to keep Russian warships out of the Black Sea. They've been helpful there, but they also have a relationship with Russia. Sometimes that frustrates us, but sometimes it's useful as well because they're a channel that we can use when we need to. As you know, they were involved in negotiating the grain deal that allowed, in the early days of the war, Ukraine to move its grain through the Black Sea and out through the Bosphorus Strait. Later, they negotiated prisoner releases between Ukraine and Russia. But then also when Brittany Griner, when we were able to secure her release, she came through Turkey, as this group did as well.
Wow. And so as you saw that play out today, again, that moment of wheels up had to be something pretty extraordinary there. But give us a sense of what you saw.
Well, for me, this is kind of round two of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
In 2014, I was able to fly down to Cuba to secure the release of Alan Gross, a USAID contractor who had been held by the Cubans for 5 years. And there was a prisoner swap with 3 Cubans held in our jails, and then another Cuban national who had been a spy for us was released at the same time. And so it was 3 planes flying to to Havana and landing all at the same time and then taking off at the same time. And I know what goes into just a more simple prisoner release. This was the most complicated and complex that we've seen. As we know now, it's the largest since the end of the Cold War. So, making sure that all the planes get to Ankara on time and that the exchanges happen, and then you never breathe well until it's wheels up for the final plane, and that happened just moments ago.
Yeah, wow. An extraordinary day, an extraordinary moment. Give us just one last takeaway as you kind of tuck this into many of the extraordinary experiences that you've been a part of as a United States Senator, as an ambassador to Turkey. Where does this stack up in all of that? And just give us a final thought.
Well, it's a big one. There's for an ambassador, there's no job bigger than protecting American citizens abroad. Although these weren't held here in Turkey, Turkey was involved, and so it was really it's up there. It really is. And one thing I'd like to point out, the president mentioned it in the White House when he was with the families, is that relationships matter and allies matter. And this would not have gone off had we not had good relationships with our allies abroad, like the 7 countries involved and like with Turkey.
I think that's so important. I'm so glad you raised that, Ambassador, because I do think that personal relationship, those personal connections are what facilitate and foster the real kinds of conversations that lead to these kinds of results. And I know that's been a big part of your work there in Turkey as the United States ambassador, and I know it's a big part of your legacy that you'll leave behind. We look forward to having you back here on U.S. ground in about another month or so, and we'll get a full debrief from you once you're back here, and hopefully some good time in the Beehive State.
Looking forward to it.
All right, that's my conversation with United States Ambassador to Turkey, Jeff Flake, who was in the room where it happened today as that extraordinary, historic prisoner swap took place. Again, it took place in Turkey, so all of these 7 countries flying planes in to Ankara, and then that exchange begins to take place, and then everyone gets onto the plane that's going to take them where they want to go, home. And that moment, as Ambassador Flake described it, when wheels up, that is the biggest of exhale moments. I thought there were a couple of other things that were really important that Ambassador Flake pointed out that I don't want to go just leaving on the table because I think they're so important. One, the fact that he mentioned President Biden's role in this, even on a day when he was telling the country that he was not going to seek re-election, that it was on that same day, on that Sunday, that he was on the phone, working the phones, working those relationships and those contacts to get this deal done and to get those U.S. citizens home. That's an important thing. We get so caught in the politics of so many things, and this is one of those moments where you put all of that aside and you get the things done. And also the fact that the ambassador pointed to the role of relationships with our allies around the world, that's what helps navigate these kind of choppy waters. And then you have all of the behind-the-scenes people. You have the intelligence community. You have the United States Diplomatic Corps and so many others. I always say the day the journey begins is not the day the journey begins. And so for those U.S. citizens that were held hostage and prisoner, their journey home did not begin today. It's been going on for a long time behind the scenes, that delicate diplomatic dance. And now they are on their way home. And again, a big thanks to United States Ambassador to Turkey, Jeff Flake, for joining us on the line. He's got to be exhausted from the past 24 hours. As he mentioned, all the moving pieces, all the moving parts, all the moving egos, and all of the intricacies that take place, any one of which could have unraveled the entire exchange. But it all came together. Citizens are coming back to the United States. They are in the air, coming this way. It's a historic day that gives you a little behind-the-scenes view in terms of how that went down in an interesting place, Ankara, Turkey. They've been the center of a lot of important things over the last several years, including this historic prisoner exchange today. Lots to think about, a lot underneath the headlines. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Don't let this happen to you.
The place not to be is I-15.
Too late for that. I am stuck in this mess now.
Before you hit the road, check the road.
Ricky, it's been kind of a nightmare this afternoon.
It's been awful. Stop and go.
Okay, yeah. I'll just pull off and get a hotel for the night.
Own the road, or it will own you. Grasshopper. Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the nines, every morning and afternoon on KSL News Radio.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Are you within 5 years of filing for Social Security? Get this. 96% of Americans forfeit an average of $111,000 in Social Security income. And it's all because they filed for their benefits at the wrong time. Learn how you could avoid this with a free, customized Social Security analysis from Boss Retirement Solutions, 5-time winners of the Best of State Award. If you've saved more than $200,000 for retirement and have not filed for Social Security, schedule your free analysis now by calling 801-896-9622. You know, for some people, filing for Social Security early could result in more net income in retirement. Discover how you could get the most income from Social Security. Call 801-896-9622. 801-896-9622.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
Life hack number 7. Get an iPhone 12 on Straight Talk.
Life hack.
Here's how it works. You walk into Walmart, go to the electronics section, ask for iPhone 12 with 5G and a dual camera system, and select the new Silver Unlimited plan. They'll smile because it's a good plan. You get real unlimited data all for just $20 a month for the whole first year. Get it at Walmart or StraightTalk.com. Straight Talk. Less dollars, more sense. Taxes and fees apply. Requires activation of iPhone 12 and a new Silver Unlimited plan or higher end auto pay enrollment. $25 a month service credit applied for up to 12 months if eligibility requirements are met. For network management practices, visit straighttalk.com.
Everyone on the road is trying to make it to their destination safely. You can help by staying aware of the large trucks and buses around you. They take longer to stop, have large blind spots, and make wide turns that require caution from other drivers. It takes all of us working together to share the road safely. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. Paid for by FMCSA.
Boyd Matheson. Listening to Inside Sources is a little different from just reading the headlines because we're always going to get you into that think again moment. We have experts from around the country, across the world, and right here local to home that'll help us dive in and get past just the hype, the fluff, the fake fights, and the false choice so we can get into the news to help you connect the dots and make the news make sense.
Join Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson, 1 to 3 on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Becky Bruce. First, the Utah Supreme Court is allowing a temporary injunction on the state's restrictive abortion ban to remain in place while the legal challenge continues in the lower courts. Second, President Biden is calling a multi-country prisoner swap that freed 2 Americans from Russia a feat of diplomacy. And third, a new study finds higher rates of cancer among Gen X and millennials than baby boomers. Researchers don't yet know why. Right now, it's sunny and 93 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. If you just joined us, we just got off the line speaking with the United States Ambassador to Turkey, Jeff Flake, who was there in Ankara, Turkey, for that historic prisoner swap. You can listen to that on the podcast later on this afternoon. Appreciated the ambassador giving us some behind-the-scenes look at how that all took place. And we're going to stay with international because there's so many things going on. Obviously, the tensions continue to escalate in the Middle East. The Biden administration is finding itself at a crucial juncture as it continues to try to pursue peace. The recent assassinations have complicated an already delicate dance in the ceasefire negotiations in Gaza, raising a lot of concerns about the potential for a broader regional conflict. So we want to get underneath the headlines of all of that, and someone who always helps us break that down, Nahal Tusi, Politico's senior foreign affairs correspondent, and as always has a great piece on this. And Nahal, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So as we look at what's going on, obviously the tensions are ratcheting up there with these assassinations. Give us your take in terms of what does this do? How does this position the administration? What does next look like in a very complicated place?
Look, it's not great. I had an administration official tell me that this makes their job harder. The killings of Ismail Haniyeh and the Hezbollah figure Fuad Shukr. In part because it just possibly could, delay ceasefire talks, lead people on both sides to feel like Israelis are not negotiating in good faith, especially because Ismail Haniyeh was one of the negotiators.
Right.
But that said, there's also an argument that, Israel shows it's quite powerful in this case, that it can get people when it wants, where it wants. I mean, my God, in the Iranian capital. And so, it might lead some Hamas negotiators and others to think, look, we need to just kind of come to a deal. So I think we're going to have to see how this goes. But the timing, I think the U.S. would have preferred this didn't happen, but it did. And so now they have to deal with the fallout.
Yeah, and that's always the case. There's the game plan, and then there's what happens after that when things start to happen in real time. And so kind of break down both paths for us, Nahal. One, as you mentioned, it may be that Hamas says, wow, Israel really can do a lot. Obviously, Iran has a big voice in all this with its proxies between the Houthis and Hamas and Hezbollah. Kind of describe that dynamic and what this show of strength by Israel, as you described it, being able to target something even inside of Iran. What does that do? And let's go down that path first.
Well, look, the assessment certainly is still that neither Iran nor Israel want to go to war with each other, not an all-out war, and neither does Hezbollah want this. So, but nonetheless, the Iranians are going to have to respond somehow. And they might do that through their proxies, or they might do what they did last time something similar happened back in April, when they sent like 300 rockets and missiles aimed at Israel, and the Israelis and their partners, including the U.S., deflected the vast majority of those. So the question is, what is Iran going to do? It's going to have to do something to kind of save face, that sort of thing. But is it going to be on the level where it feels like Israel is going to have to escalate in its response? And I think the sense right now within the U.S. and other circles, Israeli circles and others, is that there will be something, but it doesn't necessarily going to have to lead to an all-out war. But I think the problem is, look, we're in a war. This is a broader regional war right now. It's just like a low-level thing where everybody's kind of fighting everybody, and the Houthis in Yemen are lobbing rockets in Israel, and it's kind of a question of how you define what counts as war, right?
Yeah.
And some days I wake up and I feel like everything is war.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And while this may be a little lower on the burner scale in terms of war, it definitely looks like war to me. And I think that's an interesting thing to see how that plays out. Walk us through kind of the other path there in terms of the ceasefire path and, of course, the hostage component to all of this. Some have said, that just is ended now altogether. Others have said, well, it's probably at least in a certain state of deep freeze. How do you see that in the days ahead?
So, look, the Israelis, the Americans, and as far as we know, others, including Hamas, are still not officially walking away from the talks. It's possible that they might be delayed somewhat, or that they might not make much progress immediately, but the negotiations are continuing. And even if they were to be put on hold for a while, they would probably resume at some point. So the idea is that if you can get a temporary ceasefire first, right, and you can release some hostages and some prisoners during that time, then you can negotiate for a more permanent ceasefire, which Hamas wants to see Israel totally withdraw from Gaza and otherwise. I still think there's a strong possibility that you can have a temporary ceasefire for just a few weeks and see some hostages released and some Palestinian prisoners released. Many of which Israel would not want to release because they consider them dangerous, but still they want their hostages home. So I think that's possible. I have never thought that the second phase was going to happen because Israel, I don't think, is going to stop until it is convinced that it has destroyed Hamas and in particular taken out Yahya Sinwar, the guy that holds responsible for what happened October 7th.
Yeah.
So I just think I don't think that's going to happen, but after a few weeks of peace, maybe they can extend it to a few more weeks, and it just sort of depends. And then again, it's like, what is peace, right? Is an occasional incursion that causes something something violent to happen? Does that mean that the whole fight has to reignite again? Actually, both sides may think, it's a ceasefire violation. We can move on and resume the ceasefire, right? So. Right. What is war? What is peace? I don't know. Somebody should write a book about that.
Yeah, someone should write a book about that. That'd be great reading. We should go to that. I love the fact
I've actually read that book. It's really long.
I say that is not a fast page turner. It's a big bite and a long chew. Sort of like these negotiations have become, and I think it's so interesting. I love the fact that you said, hey, maybe we do end up with I remember back in the early days of this conflict that it really was kind of this. If we can get a week or 2 weeks and kind of stair step it along. And maybe that's part of the path back. I think a lot of folks have tried to paint this as a all or nothing game. And I think that kind of discounts the region. The region has always existed on very incremental peace and very incremental war. And it seems like that might be more the natural swing of this moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, look, even if you look beyond the region, I mean, look at South Korea and North Korea, right? I mean, they're technically still at war, right? I mean, they've had an armistice that's lasted for decades, and they never, declared that one side won or the other gave up or anything. It's just these things sometimes go into this weird limbo phase in which people can resume their lives in a way. But I think what really also matters, though, is what happens to Gaza when the fighting ends. Notice I didn't say the war ends, but, the fighting stops, or things come. Are they going to rebuild? Are they going to be able to rebuild? Are the people there going to have enough access to food? I mean, and water and humanitarian aid, which they don't have right now from what aid workers and others are telling us. So it's, there's no plan for the day after. Yeah. And that means that there's really no plan, and there's no guarantee of a long-term peace for Israel. I mean, arguably, you have to find a way to have a solution to this situation that brings peace for everyone. And having Gaza in a permanent state of, violence at whatever level, that's just going to have a population that's even more angry and more desperate, and it could just breed more terrorists. To be honest, it's like the question of how do you destroy a terrorist group without creating a bunch more terrorists because of the civilians that you affect along the way. And I don't think Israel has really answered that question yet.
Yeah, the day after strategy is going to be so compelling, because without that, as you said, Nahal, it all kind of unravels pretty fast. Nahal Tusi, Politico's senior foreign affairs correspondent. You can check out her piece at Politico.com, and always fantastic inside information and insight underneath the headlines. Nahal, as always, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, that's Nahal Tusi from Politico, senior foreign affairs correspondent. She is so good, and so many things to think about. It is so complicated and complex, but we'll continue to track it and watch it. We'll be right back.
.30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Becky Bruce. KSL's top local story this hour: pro-life advocates are reacting to today's state Supreme Court decision allowing a near-total abortion ban to remain on hold. Marilee Boyack is the chairperson of the Abortion-Free Utah Coalition.
I think that what was most appalling was that the state Supreme Court placed the needs of a business before the lives of thousands of preborn children.
Utah House Minority Leader Angela Romero says she's pleased with the ruling.
I wouldn't be surprised if my colleagues don't try to do something. But again, we have three branches of government. If you were to survey most Utahns, they want to keep abortion access as it is. In Utah, you can still get abortion up to 18 weeks.
The injunction means the trigger law remains on hold while legal challenges play out. Our top national story this hour from ABC News: President Biden calling a prisoner swap that freed 4 Americans a feat of diplomacy and no easy task.
Deals like this one come with tough calls, and there are never any guarantees. But there's nothing that matters more to me than protecting Americans at home and abroad.
2 of the Americans were held by Russia. Big losses on Wall Street today on worries the U.S. economy's growth is slowing down. Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 621 points. Coming up, more smoke in the air for at least another couple of days. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time 1:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Are you frustrated because you've been exercising and eating healthy, but you still can't lose weight? We know the secret to losing weight and getting healthy the natural way, without drugs or injections. At SaltLakeCityFatLoss.com, many clients lose 20 to 30 pounds in a month or two without prepackaged meals. No exercising, no hormones, no injections, drugs, or surgery. Go to SaltLakeCityFatLoss.com now.
I'm Dave Noriega, and one of the reasons I chose Salt Lake City Fat Loss was no injections, no surgery. And paying for the program helped keep me honest, focused, and on track. I lost 57 pounds in 60 days. Go to slcfatloss.com. Use my name. You're going to get an extra $200 off the program.
To learn about our program, go to SaltLakeCityFatLoss.com and schedule your free private phone consultation. Our staff will walk you through our entire program, talk about your health goals, and see if it's a good fit for you. Call 801-450-1882 or go to SaltLakeCityFatLoss.com to schedule your free phone consultation now. That's SaltLakeCityFatLoss.com. Results may vary. necessary.
Transform your old, outdated kitchen with Half Price Granite. For a limited time, Half Price Granite is offering special pricing starting at $25 per square foot installed. That's lower than most big box stores. These prices are some of the lowest around. Granite, quartz, marble, and quartzite, all starting at $25 per square foot installed. Call 801-486-1700 or visit halfpricegranite.com. Half Price Granite, affordable luxury.
Paid for by government. Did you hear? A secret hoard of 1904 $20 Gold Liberty coins have been found. These gorgeous 1904p gold coins are as bright and shiny as the day they were struck, and less than 500 of these gold coins are available. Coin experts are calling this secret U.S. gold coin discovery a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and you can own a piece of the hoard. When you call, you are guaranteed a 1904 Gold Liberty struck at the iconic Philadelphia Mint. With limited availability, you must call now. These 1904 dated gold coins are still in uncirculated condition with brilliant luster. That is 120 years of history you can hold in your hand. To learn more, call 1-800-895-7664. Call now and you'll receive a free bonus, a $75 value free with every order. Call 1-800-895-7664 now to secure your 1904p $20 Gold Liberty coins before they sell out. That's 1-800-895-7664.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Let's check in with Ricky Meese.
So far, so good on your Valley freeways. We've had reports of some minor crashes here and there, but they've been moved out of the way. We're not seeing any delays on any of the Valley freeways at this time. Where we do have traffic that's bogged down and slow is at 3300 South and State Street in multiple directions. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Smoky skies persisting today with a high near 100 degrees. It's going to be hot tomorrow as well. The good news, we could see that smoke start to clear out over the weekend with a chance for some rain. Right now, you've got fair skies, 93 degrees. I'm Becky Bruce from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel you attract people who tend to be compulsive or abusive?
Do you have money problems because of someone else's drinking?
Are you afraid or embarrassed to bring your friends home?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
More than half of all adults have a family history of alcoholism.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too. Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, free speech has become an increasingly complex and contentious issue in recent years. College students and college campuses have become the flashpoint and center point for a lot of this conversation and crucial debate. A new survey shows how damaging negative speech can be, and that interesting intersection between violent speech and physical violence. Where's the connection? Where's the disconnect? And how do we make sure we keep things in the right space? Someone who's always thinking about this for us, Emma Camp, assistant editor at Reason, has a great piece at reason.com. You can check that out today, talking about college students' views about speech and physical violence. And Emma, welcome back to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Break this down for us. A very interesting study and some polling in terms of this survey. Give us a breakdown of what are young people, what are college students seeing and perceiving?
So this is a survey from the Knight Foundation, which is sort of a journalism, broad free expression group, and they surveyed about 1,600 college students between the ages of 18 and 24 enrolled in American 4- and 2-year colleges. And they asked them a lot of different questions about their views on free speech on campus, what kind of speech their university should restrict, and so on. And, you know, the sort of headline finding, the most interesting thing that they found is that 70% of surveyed students agreed that speech could be just as damaging as physical violence. And students were divided along partisan lines for this. It was still more than half of all students, regardless of affiliation, but you had a little under 60% of Republicans agreeing with that and 82% of Democrats agreeing with that.
Wow, so fascinating. And there were some other numbers that really caught my attention in your article today, and that is the number of people, number of students who are saying, hey, I know there are people on my campus who are afraid of speaking their mind or speaking the truth because they are afraid.
Right. You had students, increasingly agreeing with statements like that. Another one that was interesting to me is students that were that believed that it was important for schools to protect students by prohibiting speech that those students might find offensive or biased. More than 1 in 4 agreed that it was important for schools to do that. And so it shows this sort of increasing, though not as bad as it could possibly be, trend towards supporting censorship. That's really troubling. We also found increasing numbers of students who basically say that they've been made uncomfortable by things other students have said about their identity characteristics. That one is interesting to me because it's not clear whether that is from an uptick in sort of offensive speech on college campuses, or that students are becoming more sensitive and more likely to be made uncomfortable in conversations on campus.
Yeah, and that's really the therefore what component to all of this in terms of that censorship that you alluded to. Kind of break that down for us in terms of what are we seeing? What do these numbers tell us in terms of what people are willing to abdicate or give up when it comes to free speech, particularly on college campus?
So it tells us a lot of what we already knew, which is that, the median college student is fairly willing to agree to censoring views that they find offensive. Thankfully, when students are kind of confronted with specific policy proposals, like disinviting speakers, I think they also use safe spaces as an example. They're less supportive, but they're more likely to agree with things that do indicate a certain level of censoriousness. For example, that big number about believing speech can be just as harmful as violence. If you believe that speech can hurt as much as punching somebody, that means two things. That means for one, you're going to be more likely to support your school censoring certain offensive viewpoints, because in the same way that they can punish students for getting in physical fights, they can punish students for saying things that hurt just as bad as a physical fight. And second, you might be more likely to engage in violence yourself or to condone violence yourself, because if speech is just as bad as violence, that means violence is just as bad as speech.
Wow, that's a fascinating space to get into, and like you said, I think it is encouraging that underneath those numbers, as you press into some specific applications, I think that's sort of where the engagement of the brain goes a little different. Like, wait a minute, that might be a slippery slope we're heading down there.
Right.
And so as you look at it, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So as you look at it moving forward, and I know you track this, you watch this, and obviously the First Amendment is such a crucial part to what happens. And I think it's one of the most important things that students can learn on a college campus is how to listen, how to be curious, how to even just wonder why someone might think that way or believe that way or live that way. And if we do end up with such safe spaces or everyone's so fearful of saying anything, it seems to me that we're sort of defeating the very purpose of higher education.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think surveys like this show that free speech on college campuses and, what college students are being taught about speech, what they believe about speech, that's an ongoing issue and something that, people who are concerned about the First Amendment and free speech rights, something that they should keep an eye on.
Yeah, so important. Great insight, as always. Emma Camp, assistant editor at Reason. You can check out her piece at reason.com. The headline, 70% of college students say speech can be as damaging as physical violence, there at reason.com. Emma, as always, thanks for making time for us. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. We'll continue that conversation with Emma Camp. That's a really important one. There's so much underneath it that we have to look at. It's easy to kind of let our First Amendment rights spin away very swiftly if we're not careful. A lot to think about there. We'll be right back. More Inside Sources coming up next.
Hi, this is Doug Wright, the other night D&I. On opening night, by the way, we had the chance to see The Nutty Professor, which is playing right now at Hale Center Theater. By the way, it continues on through August 17th. This was so much fun. For those of us who love the old Jerry Lewis movie, boy, it has ties to that. And the music of Marvin Hamlish is incredible. And the way it's staged at Hale Center Theater is simply a delight. Get your tickets now. Simply go to hct.org. Do not miss your chance to see The Nutty Professor. It's on the stage right now, and it is so wonderful. There is always something amazing awaiting you on the stages at Hale Center Theater. The Addams Family coming up in August. We've got The Magician's Elephant, and of course the classic Beauty and the Beast. Get your tickets now. Simply go to hct.org. And by the way, for current season ticket holders, it's time to renew now at Hale Center Theater.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word inbox to 57500. That's inbox to 57500.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
Are you really that different than the rest of us?
We are. As a fiduciary, we always focus on what's best for our clients.
What services do you offer besides investing?
We have a team of specialists in financial planning, estate planning, and more.
Your clients rely on you for all that?
Yes, we ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Okay, but you still sell commission-based products, right?
No, because we believe that's a conflict of interest. We prioritize service over sales goals.
So, then how do your fees work?
We have a simple and transparent fee that's a percentage of our clients' portfolios. So we do better when our clients do better.
Wow, we're more different than I thought.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at fisherinvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Any Hour Services can make sure your AC keeps you cool this summer. Whether you need a tune-up, repair, or just a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Social Security is with you through life's journey from birth to retirement. As your life changes year to year, so do your needs. For over 80 years, Social Security has helped to meet your needs and is committed to improving access to the services that make a difference in your life. Today, you can verify your earnings, estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, manage your benefits, and even change your address, all from the comfort of your home. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful when Mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. I wanted a better relationship with Dad, so I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I'm sure glad I did. Is someone's drinking troubling you? You might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
Jeff Kaplan. I'm energized by breaking news. First of all, because it's right now, and second of all, because in many cases the audience needs to know. There's no more important service that we can provide, and I find it critically important to get more details to the audience as quickly as possible. There's nothing more energizing than that for me. Not at all. The most important thing we do is breaking news. I am gratified that so many people listen to me every afternoon on KSL, but what they don't know is that there are so many people behind the scenes making it happen, checking on the traffic, answering the phones, making the calls, talking to the newsmakers. They're out in the street, into the field to get the raw information, and then putting it all together so that I can sit in front of a microphone and be a source of information every afternoon. But there are so many people who make it happen. That's what you don't know.
Ride Home with Jeff Kaplan, weekdays 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Becky Bruce. First, state lawmakers are hoping to introduce a new bill restricting abortion in Utah to 6 weeks, but say it would take a special session to do it. Second, wildlife officials say they had no choice but to euthanize a bear that attacked a hiker in Big Cottonwood Canyon. It's the second bear put down in just a few days. Third, the U.S. stock market's taking a plunge today after disappointing numbers showed jobless claims hitting their highest rate in 11 months. Right now, fair but smoky skies, 93 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as it always is. I am Boyd Matheson. For many years now, LeVar Webb has been someone that I've looked to as a voice of reason, as someone who can really get you through the rage and the reason, get to the real conversations that matter, both in the Beehive State and across the country. And after a storied career, LeVar is bidding farewell to both his longstanding column in the Deseret News with his tag team partner, Frank Piganelli. And he joins us on the line as he kind of comes full circle here. And LeVar, welcome back to the show, and congratulations on the ending of a season and the beginning of a new one that sounds pretty cool as well.
Yeah, well, thank you, Boyd, for having me on, and happy to chat with you.
Well, let's. I want to get into kind of your beginning in all of this. You have been in the journalism side of things. You were in the political side, of course, as a consultant, as a campaign manager early on. You worked inside of government in terms of legislative advising and strategy. Give us a sense of some of the core takeaways in terms of principles that you've learned over the course of a really historic career.
Well, I have enjoyed kind of working both sides, the observer and commentator role as a journalist, and working for the Governor Leavitt many years ago. That shows how old I am, and also as a consultant. So I don't know. I think we get back to the civility and working together, collaborating. I think that those are, as I have gotten older and watched politics for so many years, I think in order to really solve the problems of this country, that's what it's going to take. We do it really quite well in Utah, not so well at the national level. One of the things that I've talked about over the years is how it doesn't make sense to burn bridges, because today's enemy is going to be tomorrow's collaborator, ally, and so often we see politicians just really say nasty things and burn bridges, and it's just not a smart thing at all to do in politics or in life.
Yeah, for sure. We always say, may the bridges you burn light your way, because there's no way back. And I do think your work with former Governor Lovett, who understood that allies and alliances, that sometimes you got to compete head-to-head with people, and the next day you got to link arms with those same people to solve a different problem. And I think that's such a thing that's become so lacking in our leaders today in so many different places. As you look at your observation, I want to get into a little bit of your column with Frank, you coming at things from the right, Frank coming from the left. What have you learned in that process?
Well, I have loved working with Frank, mostly probably because we're both fairly reasonable people and both mainstream. I consider myself to be a mainstream conservative, and I think he's a mainstream Democrat. He's, of course, been in Utah his whole life and has learned really how to work with the other side very, very well. And so I've really enjoyed it. We haven't been perhaps as competitive or back and forth, been strikingly different in our positions. Because I think we both do come from that center part of the political spectrum, but it has been a real joy to work with Frank. He's a good person. I have always been willing to provide my opinion and do it forthrightly and without apology, because as a mainstream conservative, I think I do represent kind of the majority of Utahns. And even though I have gotten very severe criticism off and on from the far right or the far left, it hasn't bothered me at all, because I think my views do represent quite well those of most Utahns. So I've been very comfortable in my position on the political spectrum.
Yeah, no question. And I love I always tease Frank because he dated at least two of my older sisters, so I always have a little something to hold over Frank. But I want to go through something just real quickly, LeVar, because writing is hard. Doing a weekly column is no easy task. And then doing it with someone else is complicated. Just describe a little bit of your process and what you've learned about collaboration in the process of writing over 1,000 columns with your tag team partner.
Yeah, and we have gotten so used to it that it comes fairly naturally. But in order to write a good column, you can't sit down on your deadline and say, oh, what am I going to write about? You really need to be thinking about what has happened that week. And even as you read the news over the week, would this make a good column topic? We usually do 3 questions, kind of 3 separate topics, but related in some way. And so you really have to, when you finish one column, you really have to start thinking about the next and seeing what's happening in the world, locally and nationally, and saying, okay, let's focus on this. And so by usually Saturday or Sunday at the end of each week, Frank and I decide on a topic, and we will communicate by text or email usually and say, hey, what do you think about this? And usually we're on the same wavelength. And so we decide on a topic. One of us then will write the first draft of the introduction and then the questions we ask, and we'll send it to the other, usually by Sunday night or some Monday at some point. And then we each write our individual parts, and our deadline has been Tuesday at noon. And so Frank will usually send me his part. I will combine them, send them in by Tuesday at noon. Now, it's kind of a challenging deadline because the column doesn't appear until Friday, and lots of times things can happen between Tuesday and Friday. So, we have to talk about things that are somewhat timeless or anticipate what's going to happen. But that's the process. And then again, immediately when that column appears on Friday, you got to, or even earlier than that, you got to be thinking about, okay, what are we going to do next? It does get wearing, and those deadlines come up really fast, but we've been doing it so long that we worked it out.
Yeah. A final question for you before I let you go, LeVar, and I know that the column will continue on, and you'll have some announcements next week about who steps into the space that you're vacating there. Give us one thing as you've gone through this really incredible journey. Give us something that has surprised you along the way, something that maybe you've learned from a surprising place, or maybe a moment where you had an aha and maybe started to look at things a little differently.
Well, I think there have been many of those. I have just enjoyed the ride. You know, I can't, off the top of my head, think of any specific thing, but it's just been I appreciate the Deseret News for being willing to run the column for so long. Enjoyed my years working at the Deseret News, of course, and it takes a patient and terrific wife to allow me to do this sort of thing. So I've appreciated her and my family, and we are looking forward to our next adventure.
Great stuff. As always, LeVar Webb, great writer, great thinker, someone who's really had an impact and an influence here in our community and beyond. LeVar, thanks so much for joining us today. Thanks for an incredible run and for being a role model of what leadership really he's really good. He's really good. I don't care about your politics. He's good at it. And so that makes him very appealing as a Vice to Think Again portion of the program. Josh Shapiro is facing some pretty heavy pushback from the progressive wing of the Democratic Party as his stock continues to rise. Again, he's very popular. He's young. He brings an interesting dimension to the ticket. And, of course, Pennsylvania matters. 19 electoral votes that the ticket has to have if they're going to win in November. Now, one of those letters that was against Shapiro being the nominee that was sent to the vice president comes from nearly 50 progressive leaders talking about his shortcomings as a national candidate. And in particular, his view of what's going on in the Middle East. That some of the progressive critics of Shapiro say that, hey, his response to pro-Palestinian protests and events in Pennsylvania just weren't right. People wanted him to be less on Israel's side, more on the Palestinian side, dealing with Benjamin Netanyahu and so on. Also, some really interesting attacks on Governor Shapiro as it relates to education. A really fascinating piece of the puzzle. He worked with Republicans in the state of Pennsylvania and passed some reforms there, allowing people for school vouchers. And really interesting. So there's been a lot of chatter, a lot of clamor around that from these factional groups inside of the party. And we saw the same thing happen on the right and the Republicans in terms of those who didn't want J.D. Vance to be the vice president. And on the Republican side, it was coming more from the center of the party, whereas the base of the party was really comfortable and really liked the idea of J.D. Vance. The middle of the party, the centrists of the party, were not so fast. Is he tested? Is he ready? What about this issue or that issue? And it just shows to me that in so many of these things, we're getting to these purity tests that you have someone like Governor Shapiro, who is wildly popular in his state. His approval rating's at 62%. That's pretty tough for a politician these days. And if you're a Democrat and you're thinking we want to win the White House, and you need Pennsylvania in order to win the White House, having a governor who's really popular, 62% in a state you have to win, that seems like a no-brainer to me. But yet these factions within the party are so focused on a singular issue, as if the vice president was going to be the difference maker when it comes to international policy or how they deal with education or unions. In fact, interesting, the teachers union actually endorsed Governor Shapiro. So all of these things are just the really interesting ebbs and flows, but it makes me think again about what's happening within the parties, that the battles these days are often more intra-party than they are against the other party. And that's just craziness to me. To think that Democrats would spend all this time beating up on each other, or that Republicans would hyperventilate and hyper-focus on beating up on each other, as opposed to coming together around things they do agree on to actually get something done. And I think that's the problem with where we've landed in our politics, and that is this zero-sum game and these purity tests, that you have to be 100% on board with me on every single issue or you're out. Or if you've worked with a no-good, rotten Republican on some issue, then you're a squish and a sellout as a Democrat. Or if you've done a bipartisan piece of legislation with one of those no-good, dirty Democrats, then you're totally toxic when it comes to Republicans. All of that is craziness to me, because that's not the job anyway. And so the fact that both parties are wasting so much time and so much energy focused on all the wrong things in pursuit of some purity test that nobody can pass, by the way. Nobody can pass on either side. But they've become so hyper-focused that it has to be that. It just doesn't work that way. There are no humans that way. Maybe AI can create someone to be the perfect Democratic candidate or the perfect Republican candidate. I doubt either of those could win in today's world, in the real world. not in those who are hyper-focused on politics every day, but those Americans who get up every day and go to work and raise their family and work really hard at their jobs and make a difference in their community and help a neighbor in need. And that's the conversation inside of political parties that the conversation should be grounded in, centered on. But instead, we're so worried about deciding who is the purest of the pure on the Republican or the Democratic side of the aisle that it often prevents us from getting to the real issues that we should be focused on. And that's just fascinating to me. I think as a candidate, I think Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, makes the most sense out of any of the potential picks for Kamala Harris to be her running mate. And yet you've got people poking and prodding at that for some pretty obscure reasons that I don't think are helpful to the Democrats. And again, the Republicans did the same thing with J.D. Vance just a few short weeks ago. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. It's been a crazy summer.
The shooter managed to get onto a roof.
Biden has already endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris.
It's a hot weather stretch. The Olympics are coming back to Utah.
And no hint of slowing down. Tim and Amanda get you caught up on what happened overnight from 5 to 9. Dave and Debbie and Boyd Matheson take a deep dive on the day's biggest stories from 9 to 3. And Jeff Kaplan gives you his trademark Minute of News for your drive home.
We have you covered
all summer
on KSL News Radio.
Troy, was no one going to tell me it's already August?
Summer's really flying by, huh?
It's time to lock in for some serious summer fun before it's too late.
And Bish's is prepped to make your summer finale the best part of the year during the end of summer sizzling sales event happening now.
An unforgettable end to your summer starts with epic RV deals to extend your camping season.
That's why right now Bish's RV is offering 0 payments until 2025 on approved credit.
What? All play and no pay for the rest of the year?
You know it. Plus, find low payments on every type of RV with no hidden prep fees.
Like travel trailers starting under $149 per month OAC.
And fifth wheels starting under $299 per month OAC.
Plus, get a free 1-year Bish Fix membership with every RV purchase.
Make your summer finale the best part of the year during the end of summer sizzling sales event. Only at Bish's RV in Salt Lake and American Fork, where memories begin.
OAC 90 days no payments, finance plus 60 days with supplemental payment. Not all buyers will qualify. Based on 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 to 240 months. Stock numbers 84310, 83690, 7936278001. Subject to price sale. See dealer for details.
With Progressive's Home Quote Explorer, you can check if you're paying too much for home insurance, because giving you options is the right thing to do.
Oh, you mean like when I let someone with less groceries go ahead in line? Sure, there's a part of me that thinks, if you only need 3 things, maybe go to a convenience store next time. And now they're sifting through coupons and my frozen foods are about to be not frozen.
But still, it's the right thing to do. So compare rates with Progressive's Home Quote Explorer. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and third-party insurers. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
What's wrong?
My travel rewards card didn't earn enough miles for my vacation.
Are you crying? Are you crying because of that other credit card?
Uh-huh.
Well, switch to the Capital One Venture card. Venture lets you redeem miles on any travel purchase.
Really?
Yep, and you earn unlimited double miles on every purchase every single day. The Capital One Venture card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandswimspasale.com.
Some of the hardest and best things I've ever done, I've been motivated to do by my kids.
My daughter, she's 2. My wife, Meriden, we did it together because we want to be around a long time for her. We care a lot that she sees us be healthy. She already loves the food that we're eating. She's going to have a better life for it.
I agree with Tyler. He did SOTA weight loss. So did I. And I did it in part because I want to be around to take care of my kids and see them grow. And I want them to develop better, healthier relationships with food than I did at their age. And so I could teach them because of that nutritionist.
Look, this is not a diet. We've told you that a lot, but there's so many people that are looking at, fad diets right now. And we can tell you with SOTA, no injections, no pills, no hunger, and the difference maker is that relationship with a nutritionist. Right now, matter of fact, go to SOTAweightloss.com, click on the Request a Nutritionist callback. They want to make sure you keep that weight off. It's SOTAweightloss.com, spelled S-O-T-A, and it stands for State of the Art.
Tim and Amanda.
One of the big differences, I think, between reading a story online and hearing it from us, Tim, is that, you and I are allowed to share a reaction. We need to be able to say, what in the world were they thinking? So that people listening will know. We feel it too. When we read a story that sounds ridiculous, we're right with you. It sounds ridiculous.
Well, we get caught up, I'm sure just like our listeners do sometimes, in death scrolling on social media. And fact-checking it on your own is tough. The great thing about tuning in every morning and starting your morning with us on KSL is you can count on the fact that when that information comes out of the radio in your direction, it comes from reliable sources.
It's already been fact-checked.
Right. And that's not always easy when you're getting it online. Finding who wrote it, when was it written, has it been updated with the current facts of the day that change sometimes minute to minute, not just day to day.
Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Becky Bruce. First, Utah lawmakers say they plan to introduce new legislation restricting abortion in Utah to 4 or 6 weeks, possibly in a special session. Second, a problem bear in the Uintas hasn't been seen in several days. Wildlife officials think it's moved on from the area. Third, the U.S. Department of Transportation is proposing a new rule. It would ban airlines from charging parents to sit with their young children. Right now, hazy, 95 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. I am Boyd Matheson. It's great to be with you today as the 2024 presidential race continues its ebbs and flows. There's always changes in the game. That's the dynamic of a political race. And often it's not where you begin. It's always about where you end. But I think the most important thing is how you deal with the unexpected along the way. And one of those unexpected turns, of course, was President Biden's withdrawal and Vice President Harris' ascension as the likely Democratic nominee. In the midst of all of that, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign is now in completely uncharted territory. Tough waters for the Kennedy campaign, for sure. Once seen as a potential disruptor, Kennedy's now struggling to maintain relevance and funding in a rapidly evolving political landscape. So what comes next for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Is there still a space and a lane and a message that can have some traction and continue to be sustained all the way to the first Tuesday in November? So can he bounce back? Can he make some tweaks and adjustments? What happens next? Now, last year in December, we had an interview with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on this show. And I asked him specifically what his goals were as he looked at running for president. And here was his primary message to me and to the audience in terms of why this, why now?
My objective is to end this bickering between Republicans, Democrats, black and whites, all the divisions that are being orchestrated and sown to keep us from collaborating with each other, to keep us from being part of a community. And I'm going to end that over the next 12 months. That's my mission as a candidate, to end the division and actually start solving problems with common sense solutions that are not locked into these tribal orthodoxies.
That was my conversation with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Late last year as his campaign was ramping up. And, of course, he was here in the Beehive State several times, making sure he had the right number of signatures to get on the ballot here in the Beehive State. And now everything has changed. It's a very different landscape, very different world. now that the vice president, Kamala Harris, is the presumptive nominee for the Democrats. It sort of changes the game. There were many, I think, in the center-left, center-right space that were willing to give Robert F. Kennedy Jr. a good look. And many did, and he had some energy around his campaign. He had some interesting positions. And now, as the dynamics of the race continue to evolve, and now that it is such a short race, really a sprint, over the next 97 days, that's what we have left. And yes, we do have to endure 97 days to get to November. But it does put the Kennedy campaign in a very different space. And it doesn't look like it's in a good space right now. I think the hardest part of that is that people are starting to ignore Robert F. Kennedy Jr., where before many people saw him as a threat. And so I think that's going to be an interesting thing to see. Can he find a space or a lane where he can re-engage, and can he come back in and regain some momentum in some element? He had a lot of young people on board with him as he was beginning, and had some good momentum around that. Of course, he was drawing from some interesting components, a little bit of the middle of the Democratic and Republican Party. There were some in the Libertarian wing that liked a lot of the things that he was saying. And there was a whole host of people who were just glad that he was exposing just how difficult it is to get on a ballot. That it takes millions and millions of dollars to get on a presidential ballot. And I think he was bringing that to the fore as well. And so we want to look at what, if any, path is ahead, and what does that look like? And, of course, we often turn to David Drucker, senior writer at The Dispatch. And, David, thanks for jumping on quick with us today. Obviously, everything changed for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. the moment President Biden said, I'm out, and when the Vice President Harris ascended to the presumptive nominee status. What are you hearing? What are you sensing in the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. campaign?
Well, he seems to be moving ahead with ballot qualifications, but I think the nature of the 2024 campaign has changed, and not to his benefit, because there are now fewer, at least 10 days into the Harris campaign, there are fewer double haters, and there is less overall dissatisfaction with the Harris-Trump race versus the Biden-Trump race. And all of that is bad for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The other thing I'd say, Boyd, is that where he seemed much more problematic for Joe Biden when the president was still in this race, it now appears that he could be more problematic for Donald Trump, which was always a possibility, but now much more so since the race changed.
Yeah, and there were so many people who, even rolling into that first debate, imagine if Kennedy had been on the stage for that debate. I think both the current and the former president may have looked not good, and that would have been an interesting change in dynamic. But as you said, David, he was definitely pulling from the unpopularity and the dissatisfaction with President Biden, and now it will be interesting to see if that dynamic shifts and if he starts to pull away from some of those who are just dissatisfied with the former president.
Yeah, and look, I would still watch polling that is three-way polling, because if he's on the ballot and you have a tight race between the vice president and the former president, 1 or 2 points, either way, can have a huge impact on the outcome. It's just that I think, at least for now, it appears that his ability to garner 10%, 15%, I mean, it never appeared that he was going to threaten for electoral votes, but he had there was a possibility there where he was going to get a significant chunk of voters. And again, it played into this whole idea that voters were broadly unhappy with the fact that they were subjected to a rematch with Biden and Trump. And that's just no longer the case. And I think, particularly voters inclined to vote for the Democratic nominee, generally speaking, we've seen a movement back toward Harris, because she's younger, because she's kind of the new candidate in the race, and for other reasons. So again, got to watch how this develops. But, I was joking with some Democrats the other day that they've done such a good job at painting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as an unsavory candidate. They may want to disband now, because if it causes Trump a bigger problem that works for them.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. And just in our last minute here, give us something you're keeping your eye on, either in relationship to who they choose as the vice presidential nominee on the Democratic side, or what else you're keeping your eye on as we march our way towards the Democratic National Convention.
Well, look, I mean, there's a lot with there's so much with Trump that we know, right? And so, we can talk a lot about former president and what kind of campaign he's going to run, but I think we kind of know what he's about and what kind of campaign he's going to run. What we don't know yet is so much about Harris. What positions is she going to stake out? What positions is she going to disavow from 2020 when she was running for president the first time before she joined the Biden ticket versus since then? Is she going to be able to take a punch? Is she going to, when she or her campaign or both inevitably make a mistake or inevitably find themselves on the short end of the stick when it comes to media coverage? Whatever that is, how's she going to handle it? Every president that wins, in other words, everyone that's elected president, has a low point in their campaign. They get punched in the face. There are mistakes that are made. Events happen in the world that aren't beneficial to them necessarily. And you always have to handle it and adjust and roll and make changes. And how's she going to deal with all of that? It's a sprint of a campaign, but that's still bound to happen. For her, and so we'll have to see how she does.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating. It's not how high you soar, but how high you bounce after you hit the bottom, and I think there'll be a few moments of that across the board. David Drucker, as always, we appreciate you squeezing us in on a busy day. Thanks for joining us.
Anytime.
All right, we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. Fascinating insight there in terms of the ebbs and flows of the campaign, and we're not done. We still got 97 days to go. We'll be right back.
2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Becky Bruce. KSL's top local story this hour. The author of Utah's so-called trigger law says he wants a special session to introduce a new version of the bill aiming to stop abortions at 4 or 6 weeks. Republican Senator Dan McKay's comments came after the state Supreme Court upheld an injunction today that keeps the original law on hold. Our top national story this hour. 4 Americans are headed home after the biggest post-Soviet-era prisoner swap ever. U.S. Ambassador to Turkey Jeff Flake got to witness the events firsthand and told KSL's Boyd Matheson about it.
Well, let's just say this was an extremely complicated process with so many people involved and so many countries, a million moving parts, and trying to keep it completely quiet to the end. I tell you, that's a tough thing.
Flake said only a few people at each post knew about the plan. The U.S. stock market took a nosedive today after disappointing numbers showed jobless claims hitting their highest rate in 11 months. In addition, the manufacturing index came in lower than expected. Your money at this moment, the Dow down 494 points, the S&P 500 down 75. Coming up, a chance for rain and clear skies over the weekend. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
When you crash your car, you get it fixed. When your computer crashes, you get a new one. But what will you do if you've been saving in a 401k or an IRA and the market crashes? If you're in your 30s or 40s, you'll be just fine. But if you're in or near retirement, you could be in trouble. Mike Stevens and his team at Capital Wealth Advisors are here to help. They can run a risk analysis to see if you're too heavily invested in the market. Don't let the ups and downs of Wall Street control you or your retirement dreams. Call 801-210-5500 today to schedule your risk analysis with Mike Stevens and the team at Capital Wealth Advisors. That's 801-210-5500. Crashes happen. Question is, are you ready? Capital Wealth Advisors, 801-210-5500. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor.
Attention! If you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by sending out heart-stopping letters, aggressively garnishing paychecks, seizing bank accounts, and putting liens on homes and businesses. They call it enforced compliance, and you better watch out because penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily, making it seem impossible to ever get out of debt. Don't let the tax debt destroy your life. You need to call Optima Tax Relief, the #1 tax resolution firm. They're experts in the Fresh Start Initiative, one of the biggest breaks that the IRS has ever offered. If you qualify, you could save thousands. Optima's resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, they'll fight to get you the best deal possible. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Gear up for the hunting season with the Shields Hunting Sale event starting now through August 4th. Now's the time to save up to 40% on your favorite archery gear, camo from First Light, optics from Vortex and Leupold, and so much more. Visit Shields in-store and talk with an expert to get everything you need to tag out this season. Or shop our full selection online at shields.com. Get prepared and save now through August 4th at Shields or shields.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have had an accident called out at 2100 South and 7th East. We're also starting to see a little bit of traffic building and slowing down southbound I-15 at the South Interchange, but no crashes reported on the Valley freeways. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Still smoky today, and we're already very close to our high of 99 degrees. Tomorrow, looking pretty hot at 101. Smoke potentially clearing out Saturday and Sunday. Right now, it is hazy 96 degrees. I'm Becky Bruce from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
America's always been seen as a protector of democracy and freedom around the world. Is that still the case? It's fascinating to me that the current approach to international conflicts and challenges is underwhelming, suggesting a fundamental change in strategy is needed. America needs to make a more assertive stance in global affairs. We can't always be in ratchet down and appeasement mode. And we have to reprioritize winning rather than just surviving or maintaining the status quo. Because if we don't step up to the plate, there are others who are playing to win out there, and that puts the future of democracy on the world stage in great peril. Someone who has understood and dug into this for a long time and has a brilliant piece in The Hill. Mark Toth, of course, writes on national security and foreign policy for several media outlets. He and his tag team partner, Jonathan Sweet, penned a powerful piece in The Hill today talking about can democracies no longer win wars. And Mark, welcome back to the show.
Boyd, great to be back. Thank you.
So let's dig into this. This is something that has worried me. Is like if we are constantly in de-escalation mode or status quo mode, we're playing not to lose. And there are people like Vladimir Putin and President Xi in China and those in Iran who are playing to win, and playing not to lose isn't going to cut it.
No, Boyd, it's not. And that's something that's been frustrating John and myself for quite a long time, is we've tried to look at winning strategies. How does the U.S. Play a winning hand in places like Ukraine, the Mideast, even in the Sahel in Africa, and then ultimately, eventually, potentially in Taiwan as well, if China moves there, in terms of trying to retake the island. We just don't see a winning strategy. We see a lot of, when flare-ups happen, the administration will say, we're going to have, make sure our allies conduct proportionate responses. Please demonstrate restraint. But we'll be there. We'll help you defend yourselves as long as you can take. But the problem is we're asking our allies for their citizens to die And increasingly, as John and I are noting, it just seems domestic U.S. policies are the reason we're asking that. And that just, to me, is crazy, immoral, and it makes no military strategic sense.
Yeah, and so let's get into that just a little bit, because this is not a United States be the policeman to the world, but this is in those strategic areas that are clearly in our national best interest, that we can't just play not to lose. And so let's take Ukraine as an example. This has been an area that you and Jonathan have weighed in heavily on in terms of what this is actually playing out. So kind of just walk us through where we are, why we are, and how it could be different if we were playing to win.
Right. Yeah, Boyd, it's a great question. And to be clear for listeners, John and I, our only guiding star is national security. We've tried to be honest brokers of national security. We don't look at it on a partisan basis. It's very apolitical. But since day one of the war, we've seen splits in U.S. domestic reaction to it. And unfortunately, that's translated to the battlefield. We've had this defend mentality since day one. And to his great credit, Biden stepped up and said, hey, okay, we're going to make sure that Ukraine survives. But we've not yet seen a winning strategy come out of it. And in Ukraine, for a lot of reasons. One, getting to fight along its interior lines. Two, being able to fight basically a war of attrition that goes to their favor in the sense that it's the Russians that have to throw troops into the meat grinder. But it's effectively come to a stalemate. And a lot of the reason that's happened is that Ukraine has not been able to enter into what we call combined arms warfare. The slow walking of weapons capabilities, the slow walking of munitions capabilities, all of that has led to, almost a designed war plan that is going to produce a status quo and is producing the status quo and can only produce the status quo unless there's a change in policy. And yet we just don't see that. And that's, from our standpoint, we think a lot of domestic politics has to do with that, at least on the Republican side. The delays in funding were not helpful. But likewise, we don't see a willingness on the Democratic side to articulate a winning strategy. Some of that's escalation fears. Some of that's wanting to be able to go to the polls and saying, yeah, we're not at war anywhere. But the reality is we are at war. Our nation's enemies are attacking us, and they're attacking us through our allies.
And that is such a crucial part of that equation as you look at that, especially as we take a view of things in Ukraine. So much of it is just 6 feet at a time, 6 inches at a time sometimes, and having the things that can actually help win, not just defend or maintain. You also put it in the piece, I think, something that's really important. So we've watched over the weekend, of course, what has been taking place in Venezuela. Describe to us where you think we are in that and how this is kind of indicative of this positioning we're starting to take as a nation.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. For 25 years now, Venezuela has been under the control of dictators, first with Hugo Chavez, and then after his death now with Nicolas Maduro. And there was just an election there. All evidence points to basically Maduro got 27% of the vote, but he's claiming he got 51% and has declared himself the winner. And so on the one level, we're saying the right words, but they're kind of thoughts and prayers kind of words like, yep, we support the people of Venezuela, we support their efforts to achieve democracy and the like. But when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, what we're not seeing is any actions that could finish the toppling of Maduro. There's obviously been a lot of protests in the country that's happening in Venezuela, but we're not doing anything to help that along. John and I were frustrated that we didn't see some kind of White House announcement, either from Biden or who's really ineffectively become the de facto president now that her campaign is in full force, or either from Harris saying, okay, look, we're going to declare Gonzalez the winner. He won this thing fair and square, and if Maduro doesn't step down, then we're going to enter into severe economic sanctions. But again, we keep coming back when we keep asking ourselves why. You start to see things like oil prices and domestic calculations of not wanting to upset the global oil markets come into play, and that just seems to be influencing decisions. It just should be a no-brainer. I'd add real quickly here, I know we obsess about democracy dying in the U.S., and that's a fair debate, right? That's something that you have elections over, and we'll talk about that when it comes November. But democracies are dying all around us globally, and we're not stepping up the plate to do something about that. And to John and me, that's very, very troubling.
Yeah, and I think it's so vital that we have that part of the conversation because I think the messages, even the non-messages, the silence, when it comes to a place like Venezuela, that not only sends a message to the people of Venezuela, but it also sends crucial messages both to our adversaries around the world, but also to our allies that have to make some of those democracies that are maybe struggling or that are under threat question whether the United States is a good ally, is a good partner, and will be there to stand with them when things get tough.
No, you're absolutely right. And I would add to that, I think it's important because sometimes I think here in the U.S. we tend to think of our words as it's just happening between each other, right? Fellow Americans talking about policies. But what we need to do, something that John and I warned twice about in the New York Post with respect to Kamala Harris, is that she's got to think about how her words are interpreted by Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. And the first warning that we gave several weeks back in the New York Post was basically to say, hey, you can't cut the legs off of Netanyahu the way that you did because bad things are going to happen. And sure enough, we saw that, right? We had the drone strike near the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv, a place that I used to live just a couple of blocks from. It was clearly targeting that. And then, roughly 8-9 days later, we had the attack on the Jewish village in northern Israel in the Golan Heights. And so words matter coming out of the White House and people that are perceived to be in power. And that's an equal opportunity thing. It crosses party lines. I'd say the same thing to Trump, to Vance, and others. Your words are being heard and they're being interpreted by our nation's foes about how best they can attack us with them. So just be careful because democracy is at risk.
Yeah, no question about it. That's what a crucial conversation sounds like, folks. As always, Mark Toth, thank you so much for joining us. Fantastic perspective. This is a crucial conversation we all need to lean into because it's not just things far away on the other side of the planet. These are things that impact us right here at home as well. Mark, thanks again for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Boyd. Thank you for highlighting it.
All right. Again, that's Mark Toth, writes on national security and foreign policy for a number of media outlets. He and his tag team partner, Jonathan Sweet, a great piece in The Hill. Check it out at thehill.com. Can democracies no longer win wars? An important conversation. We'll take a quick break. More Inside Sources coming up next.
At Progressive, we know money can't buy you happiness, but money did help you buy an RV, which means an excuse from working Saturday with your insufferable coworker, Dave. So money is helping you listen to birds chirp instead of Dave chirping about how his toddler is fluent in 3 languages. And it's also why you'll be smelling pine trees in the air, not Dave's tuna melt reheating in a microwave. So save money by bundling your RV or boat insurance with home or auto from Progressive and buy more happiness, or something close to it. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single line 1, 5, and 10 gig data plans with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plans offered by T-Mobile and Verizon January 2024.
Trail mix, beef jerky, mixing all the soda flavors at the gas station soda machine. Snacks are better on the road. The gas is better when it's top tier. And the pit stop is better when there's a dinosaur there. Love the filler moments at a Sinclair gas station near you with DinoCare, our top-tier gasoline. Some sweet and salty snacks for the commute, and a big green dino for the memories. Find a gas station near you at sinclairoil.com. Sinclair, fill up your life.
Hey, this is Dan, the laptop man from PCLaptops.com. I've been advertising with KSL Radio for decades now, and radio works. With all the clutter on social media, radio cuts through all the noise and gets directly into your customer's brain. If you're a small business and want to reach the local audience here in Salt Lake City, KSL Radio is the way to go.
If you'd like to know more about the benefits of advertising with KSL News Radio, email Stephanie Palmer at spalmer@ksl.com.
In a world where ugly siding, leaky gutters, and inefficient windows are sapping homeowners of their will to live, one company must save us all. This year, join RGS Exteriors as it embarks on a mission to eliminate outdated home exteriors, one Utah home at a time. Every plank of old, ugly siding must be replaced. Every leaky gutter must be eradicated. Every inefficient, energy-sapping window must be vanquished. Once and for all. Begin your epic remodeling quest by calling RGS Exteriors for a free estimate. Discover how a heroic team of experts will save your siding, gutters, or windows for a fair, no-nonsense price. Call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or journey online to rgsexteriors.com. RGS Exteriors, coming soon to a home near you.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
People have asked me why I chose soda weight loss instead of one of those shots or injections. Honestly, one of the reasons was because first, I knew soda got results. I just looked at my friends who'd already done it, and second, I knew those results stuck. With the shots, most people eventually gain back the weight they lost and then some, because it doesn't change the habits that led to their weight gain in the first place. Soda weight loss specializes in releasing the toxic deep down fat mass in the belly without drugs, pills, or shots. I let go of 70 pounds in just 5 months. They've helped me change my relationship with food and develop simple life habits that'll make my long-term success a sure thing. Basically, soda gets results, and they last. See for yourself at sodaweightloss.com. Check out the thousands of before and after pictures of people just like you and me. While you're there, click the Request a Nutritionist callback. Within minutes, you'll be talking to someone who truly wants to help you get in the best shape of your life for the rest of your life. Go to sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com. And remember, SOTA stands for, say it with me, state of the art.
Troy, was no one going to tell me it's already August?
Summer's really flying by, huh?
It's time to lock in for some serious summer fun before it's too late.
And Bish's is prepped to make your summer finale the best part of the year during the end of summer sizzling sales event happening now.
An unforgettable end to your summer starts with epic RV deals to extend your camping season.
That's why right now Bish's RV is offering 0 payments until 2025 on approved credit.
What? All play and no pay for the rest of the year?
You know it. Plus, find low payments on every type of RV with no hidden prep fees.
Like travel trailers starting under $149 per month OAC.
And fifth wheels starting under $299 per month OAC.
Plus, get a free 1-year Bish Fix membership with every RV purchase.
Make your summer finale the best part of the year during the end of summer sizzling sales event. Only at Bish's RV in Salt Lake and American Fork, where memories begin.
OAC 90 days, no payments, finance plus 60 days with supplemental payment. Not all buyers will qualify based on 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 to 240 months. Stock numbers 84310, 83690, 79362, 78001. Subject to prior sale. See dealer for details.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Becky Bruce. First, Utah's Attorney General says he disagrees with a decision that keeps the state's trigger abortion law on hold. His office plans to defend the law. Second, a board member at the Salt Lake City Firefighters Relief Association is facing fraud charges, accused of spending nearly $4,000 that wasn't his. Third, Ambassador to Turkey Jeff Flake tells Boyd Matheson a prisoner swap that resulted in 4 Americans being released from Russia was a huge undertaking that depended on secrecy. Right now, 96 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as it always is. I am Boyd Matheson, and as we round out the program today, so fascinating to see the dialogue, the conversation that is taking place, especially for those who are running for the highest office in the land. Yesterday, former President Trump took on the identity of Vice President Harris, saying to a group of black journalists that the vice president just decided to be black, that she wasn't being true to her Indian heritage. fascinating and stunning that he would go into that space. That makes no sense to me. That is inciting. That is inciting language. Words matter, and words have meaning, and that meaning matters. And sadly, in our country, we're getting so focused on that kind of inciting words and dialogue that it's preventing us from dealing with the real issues of the day. And we've seen it on the Democratic side as well. We talked earlier in the show about one of the leading candidates to be the running mate to Vice President Harris, the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, who is Jewish. And he is taking some real heat from the progressive left, who don't like his stance on Israel and Hamas. And so they're creating all of these distracting, insightful bits of noise and chatter and clamor that really prevents the real conversation, the important conversations we need to have in this country. And inciting fear, anger, frustration, all those negative base emotions, that's easy stuff. Any knucklehead can do it. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be reasoned or rational. Anybody can do it. A 5-year-old can do it. Inciting, using those emotions is easy. Now, insight, I-N-S-I-G-H-T, is another matter. That's hard. That kind of insight takes courage. You have to cultivate it with patience and humility, curiosity, and careful consideration. Insight, I-N-S-I-G-H-T, elevates, but it's hard. So whether you're looking to incite, I-N-C-I-T-E, or get to insight, I-N-S-I-G-H-T, that's the conversation we need to get to. And sadly, in our performative politics kind of world, we've lost a lot of the insight that comes from wisdom and understanding and curiosity and good questions because we're so worried about the inflammatory inciting of anger and fear and frustration and contempt. And I think the nation is ready for different. Because in my view, and as I look out across the country, the list of big issues in this nation where the citizens actually agree, whether that's on race or immigration or health care, there's a lot of agreement. And so the question is really, if we agree on so many things, why can't we make any progress on anything? And sadly, too many of our elected officials, our local leaders, national media, they trade on inciting anger and frustration. The currency of fame and power, influence, and political capital causes them to too often take isolated incidents, inflame them as indicative of the attitudes and actions of all Americans. And it's just not reality. And yes, there are some citizens who simply don't want to change, and they want to maintain the status quo or maintain their current position of power. And so that always gets me wondering, why is it that many powerful people won't let the insight, I-N-S-I-G-H-T, that comes from real conversations happen? And we have to ask ourselves, what's our role in this ongoing incitement, I-N-C-I-T-E version, of emotions, and embrace the pursuit of some real incitement, a different kind of incitement? We've been having on this program over the course of the summer, every Friday, our good friend Joseph Grinney, of course, New York Times bestselling co-author of Crucial Conversations. And he made a comment on this show a while back as we were talking. He's done a lot of work over the years in places like South Africa, other places around the world. And he noted that years ago, as the nation was really trying to come together, in the regular polling that was taking place in South Africa regarding race relations, there was one question that could transform everything. And this was the question. The question was, in the last 6 months, have you had someone from another race over for lunch or dinner? Now, just think about that. if each of us had someone over for lunch or dinner who didn't look like, believe like, think like, or live like we do, if we did that once every 6 months, imagine the kind of insight that kind of conversation and interaction could create. It'd be absolutely transformational. And the question is, who's willing to do that? Are we willing to get out of our comfort zone? Are we willing to lean into a different kind of conversation? Because if not, then we're just going to keep screaming at the divide, and the divide won't move. And you can't bridge a divide by driving a wedge even deeper. And sadly, the insight, INCITE, that our politicians seem to be most performative at and best at is driving wedges. And what we need is the insight, INSIGHT, that actually comes from building bridges. And you don't build bridges by driving wedges. And as we always say, anyone who is planting thistles in the spring is not anticipating harvesting fruit in the fall. And the same is true when it comes to getting to the kind of insight we need in this country to solve the big problems of our day. All right, that wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today here on KSL News Radio. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us. And as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station. Good afternoon. It's 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Shalao sitting in today for Jeff Kaplan. It's sunny in downtown Salt Lake City, a scorcher, 97 degrees. KSL's top story. A pause on Utah's restrictive abortion ban will stay in place for now. The Utah Supreme Court has allowed a temporary injunction to remain in place. We have